We are here today on this citation, April 28th of this year, US 131, there in Wayland Township, Allegan County, state of Michigan. This is a distracted driving citation. Mr. Doran, you're here on this citation to do one of three things. First is you could admit responsibility to the citation, or two, you wish to admit responsibility but provide some sort of explanation to the court as to how or why this happened. Or three, you wish to contest this citation, in other words, fight the ticket at what we call informal hearing. What were you looking to do?
Fight the ticket.
All right. Then the first thing I'm going to do is swear you both in. If you could raise your right hands. You swear or affirm that any testimony you give here today would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Doran, it makes a lot more sense for me to start with the officer. He has the burden to establish to me why he issued you a citation in the first place. But after that, you'll have an opportunity to either ask your own questions or testify in your own behalf. All right?
Yes.
Deputy Miller, if you want to start a narrative somewhere where it makes sense and explain the issuing of this citation, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. As indicated on April 28th, 2023 at approximately 10:37 a.m., I was notified by Lieutenant Danveld and Sergeant Martin, who were on the highway driving in a pickup truck and observed a male subject traveling southbound on US 131 near 129th Avenue, in which he had his cell phone in his hand and was looking at his phone. Both Lieutenant Danveld and Sergeant Martin provided the registration, a description of the car being a late model blue Ford. As at this time, I located the car, initiated a traffic stop, identified the driver as Mr. Doran. Upon Mr. Doran, speaking with Mr. Doran, he stated that he did not have his cell phone in his hand, but however, he had it on his leg and was using it as a GPS. At this time, I have no further information. I did issue him citation number SD 18562 for the distracted driving.
All right. And Mr. Doran, what is it you'd like to tell me?
Well, there's a lot left out there. But first of all, just the way that the two previously mentioned officers pursued me, and my interaction with Officer Miller. I wasn't using my phone. The ticket says text. I'm looking at the I'm sorry, the ordinance right now. And although it vaguely mentions usage other than it's definitively describing text messages, which I have a copy of my phone record for that time. Nothing.
Yeah, sir, let me stop you right there. I believe you 100%. You weren't sending texts. You can continue.
Thank you. The officers in the Ford pickup, I don't know, somebody along the way told Officer Miller that the vehicle or the plate was stolen, or insinuated, I should say. I don't want to, I don't know. Legal jargon is not my hot topic.
All right, sir, let me clear something up for you just so we can maybe speed this up. Those two officers are in an undercover vehicle because they have a grant to drive around and look for people using their phones while they're driving. It's a statewide thing. It's happening all over the place because people on their phones while they're driving, it's causing more accidents than drunk driving. So essentially what I need to know is what, if anything, you were doing with a phone while you were driving?
GPS.
Okay. The only way you can do that legally is if your phone is dash mounted. Then you can use your GPS all day long.
Okay,
but you cannot use your GPS with your phone in your hand.
Your Honor, excuse me,
yeah.
And I'm very sorry. I don't want to drag this out. I don't mean to come off as rude, but the officer yelled at me, accusing me of stealing the car or the license plate. He acknowledged that I was only using it for GPS when I pointed out to him, and then he came back with that. But I can tell you, I have two black sons, and for years I was told you shouldn't have black children because you won't know how to explain exactly the interaction I had with this officer. I was treated horribly. I was yelled at, and I got to tell you, first time in my life, interaction with police, I was scared, frightened. Because he kept asking me, go ahead.
Well, essentially, just to clarify for you, this is a sort of like a separation of powers thing. I'm judicial branch, right? The officer is executive branch. So what I want to just clear up for you, because a lot of people do this, is they come here and they want to tell me something that they didn't appreciate how the officer handled themselves. I'm not his boss. He has a separate chain of command that you would, make a complaint to if you wanted to. I just don't want you to feel like you're lodging a complaint against the officer to me. That wouldn't really matter. What I need to do is decide whether you're responsible or not responsible on a citation for using for what they call distracted driving. And
Okay,
so essentially, what I would explain to you is that you're right in that this is a terribly written statute. Again, the separation of powers, we blame the legislature for that, because everybody thinks it's whether or not they were texting, and 9 times out of 10, they're not actually texting. But really what it is conveyance of information by electronic means. So essentially that's why it says, and it refers later to even GPS, you're allowed to use your GPS on your phone all day long. But that phone needs to be dash mounted so that you're looking at it up here where, the same place you're looking where you're driving. If you have your phone in your hand, you're not even really supposed to be making phone calls on it. There's a new law that starts in
on the 30th.
In 17 days. And essentially, I'm going to explain things the long way to you, but I'm going to give you that same break I've been giving people all month. If we stripped everything away and you just said, look, you know what I mean? I was not texting. I wasn't doing anything other than I had GPS on my phone. I don't know what is going on with the license plate, because that's not, you don't have a citation for that. So I'm not sure what all that was. But what I do have is someone who's saying, well, I was using the GPS on the phone.
I was.
And so essentially what would happen is, because it wasn't dash mounted, you would be found responsible on this citation. But essentially what I've been telling people is the break I've been giving everybody is this is a $200 fines and costs. The new law that starts in 17 days is basically you can't use your phone at all while you're in the car, but it's only going to be $100 fines and costs. So essentially what I've been saying is this same violation 17 days from now would cost you half as much. And so I've been giving people that break sort of all month. So here's what I want to explain to you, a couple of things, just so you don't feel like we sort of rushed through this. One is if you had a complaint that you wish to lodge about how this was handled from the police officer's point of view, I just want you to understand that the correct place for that complaint would be up the police chain of command, not through the court system. 2, me listening to the evidence of just essentially the citation you have here, even by your own admission, I would find you responsible on this citation as it's written. And then that triggers a right that you have. You have a right to say, I don't agree with what just happened there. I don't think I should have got found responsible on that. Because you had a contested hearing, you do have a right to contest this further and go to something we call formal hearing, which is in front of the district court judges with the prosecutor's office. But to do that, to take this further, you must request that within 7 days of today's date, and you must request that in writing. But what I'm telling you is, yes, I found you responsible, but here's the 2 things that triggers. One is, the only good thing about this ticket is it's not a moving violation. You don't get points for it. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, it's not a moving violation. The other thing is right now what I'm going to do is essentially, like I said, cut this in half to a $100 total fines and costs, because essentially I don't think this law will get written by officers much anymore after July 1st. It'll probably all be the other and new statute that essentially says don't be on your phone while you're driving. So I would give you that break. If you accept this finding, you only owe the $100 fines and costs. My only caution to you is if you exercise your right to go to formal hearing, that's fine, but it would be on the original citation at the $200 price point if you were found responsible again at formal hearing. So do you understand their rights on appeal?
Well, I'm trying to understand because when I called to schedule this hearing, the young lady told me that it was $100 to start with.
Yes. But here's the problem, and I'm looking at it, it will get sent to you. That's the other thing that bothers everybody. They say, first offense, it says right there, it's a $100 fine. Why is it $200? It is a $100 fine, but then it is $60 in court costs, $75 crime victims' rights fee. Well, then they have $40 state costs. It's $200 because half of that is fines and half of that is what they call costs. So for me to give it to you as $100, what I'd be doing is essentially having your fine and having your costs. So it'd be a $50 fine, a $10 cost, and a $40 state cost, being a total of $100.
Your Honor, I was working between two different job locations for a new company that has a zero tolerance. And this is not what was advertised in the commercial. I'm not trying to argue the semantics of this ordinance. But
Okay.
possibly if they explained this better, people wouldn't be using it for the purposes I was using it for either. Now, that being said, I also added a cup mount thing per the officer's advisement. I really can't have this on my record in any way, shape, or form. I'm happy to pay $100. I can't jeopardize losing the job.
Well, like I said, sir, it's not a moving violation.
Is there a record of it?
I don't believe it's reported to Secretary of State as a driving violation. I'm not sure on that because that's all Secretary of State. They handle that. That's not, your driving record is completely Secretary of State. The court doesn't. But I would assume, since it's not a moving violation, I'm not sure it would be reflected on your record.
You're correct, Your Honor. It's a non-moving violation, doesn't go on the record.
Yeah. So essentially, the fines and costs is the only punishment.
Okay.
But like I said, you could continue to contest this at formal hearing if you wish to. It's just that I'm not sure that the next judge, if they found you responsible, would give you the fines and cost break that I've given you. That's just something I think you should take into consideration. And so with that, gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and release parties. You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is that your only one?
Yes, that's my only one.
Somebody else the next one. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I just don't have anybody here for you yet, so I'm going to pop you back over in the waiting room.